Hey friends, this is Michael Bohm with Youth Apologetics Training. Today we're going to finish off this series with Ian Juby. We're talking about the global flood, the evidence for a global flood. Again, this is Ian Juby of Genesis Week. His website is ianjuby.org. Guys, I don't really need to say this at this point, but you really need to. Check out what he has to offer. Check out his videos on YouTube. His channel is Genesis Week. And check out his website. He's got so much good information on this debate of creation and evolution. So anyway, with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. So what about bone beds? All right, you have these massive fossil graveyards where there's just animals, dinosaurs, whatever, reptiles, piled on top of each other, all in one spot. A lot of times you hear the explanation is that a group of reptiles or somebody, or, whatever, was crossing a stream, and then maybe the stream rose a little bit and washed them downstream, and they all got piled on top of each other. Or maybe there was a storm or a really nasty monsoon.
Right.
How does this happen?
Yeah, that's, again, is a more powerful evidence for a worldwide flood. The dinosaur bone beds, for example. And it's really funny because when you go through the natural history museums and they talk about the dinosaurs, you can see it here at the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Drumheller, Alberta, which is a fantastic museum. I still haven't made it to the Museum of the Rockies yet in Montana. I got to do that someday. But I'm sure they do the same thing there. As you tour throughout the museum, and they have dinosaur after dinosaur after dinosaur after dinosaur after dinosaur. This herd of dinosaurs drowned trying to cross a raging river. This dinosaur drowned in a flood. This dinosaur drowned in a flash flood. These dinosaurs were buried in a flash flood. Over and over and over and over again. Now, why are they saying that? Well, when you go and visit the bone beds themselves, you find out quickly. They're buried with fish. They're buried with fossil clams buried alive in the closed position. The dinosaur bones themselves have been ripped apart. The skeletons have been ripped apart. In fact, in the Royal Tyrrell, they even have a picture of a flash flood that happened in Quebec and killed all kinds of caribou. And it showed all these caribou piled up in this huge sort of field, if you will, as the water was receding. And now, of course, you can imagine what's going to happen. All these, they're going to start rotting and they're going to get ripped apart by the water and bones moved around. And they're saying this is what happened to the dinosaurs. And I totally agree. Then you come around the corner and they show you a cross-section of dirt taken from the Badlands. And this is the KT boundary, which is the Cretaceous-Tertiary boundary, which is supposedly the layer at which point the giant asteroid hit and killed all the dinosaurs. Well, wait a minute here. Is it a flood or is it an asteroid? Make up your mind. And the thing is, the evidence that it was a flood is overwhelming, even to the point where they even say it in the museums. Then they will revert to the asteroid, which has all kinds of problems with it. I actually talk about that in one of my newsletters. I talk about all the supposed evidence for an asteroid. I'll let the listeners look that up for themselves. But it's in my newsletter. Just look up dinosaur asteroid. You'll find it.
Okay.
But when we take a look at the Badlands, it's copious evidence that these dinosaurs were buried in a flood. Now, when you actually map out that layer that the dinosaurs are found in, for instance, the Morrison Formation, which outcrops in Utah and Colorado, that if you've ever gone to Dinosaur National Monument in Utah, have you ever been there?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's a must-see if you ever get the chance. Dinosaur National Monument, wow. That'll give you an idea of just what we're talking about. You'll find anywhere from 1 to 50 bones per square yard, depending on where you are and how dense the bone bed is. That's how many bones we're talking about here. And you can see it for yourself at Dinosaur National Monument. The rock layers have been tilted up. They very nicely cleaned off the rock, so you can see the bones. It's a fantastic place, a must-see. Well,
yeah, I'm looking at pictures right now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, that layer, if you map it out, that layer covers 10 states and 3 Canadian provinces. So we're not talking about some meandering stream here. This was a global flood scale flood. And every time you deal with the dinosaurs, over and over again, it always involves a flood. The Cretaceous layer we talked about, the chalks earlier. Even Derek Ager talked about them being a flood. In China, you'll find dinosaurs, the oviraptors, for example. There's been several that were found buried alive by a flash flood sitting on their nests of eggs.
Huh.
And there's been several. There's been multiple. So there hasn't been one. There's been several found like that. And even they say it was a flash flood that did it. Now, they show these dumb animals laying their nests in the middle of a riverbed, and, oh, no, here comes the flash flood, you know. Well, when you look at it from a geomorphological perspective, that layer, that's one of the principles of geology, that layer is assumed to have been laid down horizontally. It is a horizon. That horizon encompasses provincially sized areas. These aren't little areas. These aren't little riverbeds. This is layers of rock the size of entire countries and continents. And so when you're talking about a flash flood that buried alive dinosaurs while still sitting on their nests, and that layer encompasses at least provincially sized areas, well, we're talking about a worldwide flood. We're not talking about some meandering river. So even the dinosaurs are actually powerful evidence of Noah's flood. The dinosaurs don't present evidence for deep time and millions of years at all. And again, I'm sure you've talked about the T-Rex meat that was found. There's been multiple instances dating back to the 1920s of dinosaur blood found in dinosaur bones and soft tissues that, from the center of the bones, where you can actually stretch this dinosaur meat, let it go, and it stretches back into its original shape. That's how fresh it is. And that's, there's absolutely no way that could be millions of years. So when you look at the evidence overall, it's obvious that it was a worldwide flood that killed these dinosaurs, and it happened recently. None of this is millions of years old. It all stacks up to the big picture exactly as dictated in the history according to the Bible.
Awesome. Okay, tell me about this book, Rock Solid Answers.
That was a fun book. It got a little technical, but it is still an excellent read. I highly, highly recommend it. It was actually multiple authors, I think a dozen or so. I forget the exact number. But it was edited together by John Reed and Michael Ord. John Reed's a geologist. Mike Ord is actually a meteorologist who's just passionate about geology and geomorphology and has become quite expert at it. And so what they wanted to do is they wanted to put together a book answering the detractors, answering the skeptics and the evolutionists and the anti-creationists on geology and the age of the Earth. And so what they did is they called upon many of us authors and our areas of expertise. My area of expertise happened to be the Joggins Fossil Cliffs of Nova Scotia, because I've been studying them for 6 or 7 years at that point. And they asked us to write a chapter on what are the old Earth arguments and how would you respond to them. And so with Joggins, for example, the old Earth argument is that these trees were buried where they grew. I gave multiple reasons why they weren't buried where they grew, including roots that have been ripped off, trees buried upside down, the rootlets sometimes ripped off the stumps, off the roots themselves. I gave a whole mess of reasons why these weren't fossil forests. This was evidence of catastrophe, for example. But the whole book is excellent in that regard because all we deal with is geology and as it relates to the age of the Earth. And we show that the geology, contrary to what is claimed by those who believe in deep time, does not support the idea of deep time, but actually supports the idea of a young Earth.
Wow, okay, cool. Yeah, I got to check that out. I was looking on your website, too. You have a couple different DVD sets. One is a 12 DVD set, and the other one is like the mother load of 16 DVDs. Mm-hmm. Tell me about those. How do they differ?
Okay, well, the first series was what we call the Complete Creation series. I wanted to do an exhaustive video series on the creation-evolution debate, and that was about 11 hours. We also did a 1 hour, this was at a huge church in Illinois, just outside of Chicago. They wanted to do a series on DVD that they could use as their curriculum for their Bible college, I wanted to do a series of all my lectures put together. So basically, the full gamut. And so the Complete Creation series was born out of that. And our first night, we had planned this for months, and about a week before the first night, where we were going to shoot live 3-camera shoot with the kids and do a children's session, we realized a week in advance, that's Super Bowl Sunday. So we didn't know what was going to happen, and it was packed. We had like 500 kids there. It was awesome. And
what's football anyway?
That's right. Yeah. So it was. We had a blast. I always enjoyed doing the children's presentations, and I find the adults get a lot of the children's presentation because they understand it. So basically, and then we did 11 hours of day in, day out. We did several sessions a day for several days and just recorded each session. And so I started at the beginning with the history of the creation-evolution debate, which has a surprising beginning. Most people think it started with Darwin. It didn't start with Darwin. Darwin was just one who popularized it, and frankly, even his work really, he didn't do much work, frankly. So anyway, we started with that. Then I go into the science of it all, and I start with the geology because that's where the battle started, and go into biology, physics, astronomy, you name it. And basically, I tried to cover every possible subject related to the creation-evolution debate. And so it's an exhaustive series of 11 videos. And so with the God's Little Creation, the 1-hour children's presentation, it's a 12 DVD set. And you can get any one of those DVDs if you want one specific subject. But that's that set. And then the others, I have my what I call my Creevil rants. These was a series of short, funny, fast, hard-hitting videos that I started producing about, oh my goodness, maybe 5 years ago now.
They look pretty funny.
Wow.
Just looking at the pictures on the cover.
Yeah, wow, time flies. But yeah, I was actually inspired by a couple of different people. One of them was a comedian up here in Canada by the name of Rick Mercer, and he would do Rick's Rant. And he'd do this sort of style of ranting in front of the camera for 3 to 5 minutes about something political, right? And another gentleman who I've actually forgotten his name. He was on YouTube. He also inspired me. He'd do these short rants about political things. So I took that and sort of did my own style with a creation-evolution bent to it. And basically pick a subject, like, again, dinosaurs and the asteroids. That's one of the rants. And it was about a 5 or 6 minute video dealing with what killed the dinosaurs. And it's fun because, we had all kinds of scenarios about, gee, what was it that killed the dinosaurs? Did they get run over by tractor trailers? Was it Chuck Norris? Was it a flood? Was it an asteroid? Was it aliens? And have a whole pile of fun with it. And then we actually look at the evidence, and I actually shot that in the Badlands of Alberta, where we're actually looking at actual dinosaur bones in the dinosaur beds and the fossil clams along with the dinosaur beds and stuff like that. So anyway, that's that video series. There's 3 of those now. I'm working on the 4th DVD right now, but it hasn't been completed yet because I want to close captions on it and having technical issues. So I'll get that one done here shortly. So that'll be 4 volumes of rants. That'll be done by the time that one's available. And then the last DVD, which is my most recent one, Genesis and Aliens, that was a fascinating and disturbing subject. Started about 6 or 7 years ago. My number one question, I get all kinds of questions during Q&A when I'm on tour, right? And sometimes having nothing to do with creation or evolution. But anyway, like the most common question I got was, what about global warming? And I'm from Canada. I think global warming is an excellent idea. So that was my response. But about 6 or 7 years ago, it suddenly changed and took this dark turn. And it happened, I first noticed it when I was speaking at a teen Bible camp, here in Alberta, actually, up in northern Alberta, not far from here. And I had, I think, 8 different teens in 3 days ask me, well, what about aliens? What does the Bible say about aliens? What does science say about aliens on other planets, alien life and UFOs and all that? What does science say about all that? And I sort of had a few answers, but I figured, okay, I got to deal with this. And I had a few answers, but it still couldn't prepare me for what I was to learn in the next 24 hours. And I prayed about it and started doing some searching, called some friends and researching. What I learned in the next 24 hours blew my socks off. The Lord really opened doors for me. In fact, I found papers and articles that I have not found since then, and I've gone looking for them. But basically, there's two parts to the phenomenon, the UFOs themselves, which there really isn't much to it. Even the UFO magazines have said flat out, we have yet to see evidence of extraterrestrial UFOs. Every single UFO incident we can think of can be explained by something near Earth, something on Earth or near Earth.
Sure.
Something explainable. However, in the middle of all that is the whole alien abduction phenomenon. Most people don't realize how common this is. I didn't. And when I started researching this, it turns out I had 2 or 3 different friends who had been abducted by aliens. And I didn't know this until I started asking around and researching. And that lines up with the figures which have been cited, which is basically 1 in 40. So 1 in every 40 people believes they've been abducted by an alien. Think about that for a second. For every 40 people you know. So this is a serious phenomenon. This is not some, something that's happening in the dark corners of, rarity somewhere. This is a common phenomenon. And it is
now,
a very...
Do you believe...
What's that?
Go ahead, sorry.
What's that?
I was going to ask, do you believe that they are actually another creation of God in the sense of like another race? Or do you think this is actually some kind of a demonic manifestation?
That is the question. And see, that's what I dealt with in the video, Genesis and Aliens. I looked at it, first of all, scientifically, showed scientifically these cannot be aliens. From the UFOs to the alien abduction scenarios. Then we looked at it biblically. Biblically speaking, they cannot be aliens from other planets.
You're right, exactly.
And go into the Bible and look at it from a biblical perspective. Then we start looking at the actual evidence, the actual incidents themselves, which basically boils down to kidnapping and rape. It's very unpleasant, and most people don't realize this. It doesn't just happen once. These abduction experiences happen over and over and over and over again. And one major clue, which I saw real fast, even with my friends who have been allegedly abducted, is so far as I've been able to tell, 100% of people who claim to have been abducted have been involved in the occult or had direct family ties to the occult.
I wouldn't doubt that one bit.
Yeah, so there's your first clue. The second clue starts off with you get these people become born-again Christians, and the next time these aliens come back to abduct them again and torture them again, they tell them to leave in the name of Jesus Christ. They leave and never return. So, well, wait a minute. If these are aliens with superior technology, capable of space travel, why would they be subject to the name of Christ? And why is it the name of Christ? What is it the name about Jesus Christ that they are subject to him? It doesn't work in the name of Allah. It doesn't work in the name of Buddha. It doesn't work in the name of Jimi Hendrix.
In the name of Joseph Smith.
That's right.
No.
It doesn't work. They tried. But only the name of Jesus Christ. So what is it about that name of Christ? Why that name? And what's going on there? And of course, we can all see where this is going. But anyway, it's a fascinating and disturbing subject that really should have been a 5-hour series, but instead it's a 1.5-hour DVD.
Interesting. Yeah, there's actually ministries out there that are wholly devoted to helping people with these situations. It's really bizarre. It's so bizarre that I tend to avoid talking about it just because I don't want to be perceived as wearing a tinfoil hat. But it's hard to look the other way when there's so many of these type situations. Now, coming from an occult background, Ian, I actually practiced witchcraft when I was younger. So did my wife before we met. And we both did a lot of things that we're pretty disgusted with. But in that process, you kind of open up a lot of doors. Okay? And let's just put it this way. These manifestations that show up in your bedroom, don't always show up looking like little gray people. There's so many other accounts where there are visitations of beings that don't look like little gray guys at all, and take on the form of like a man in black, robed figures. I mean, creepy stuff. And so, yeah, I've come to the conclusion that it is definitely a demonic. Look, there's all kinds of lies. Satan's got more irons in the fire than you can shake a stick at. Okay? He's got Hinduism with all of their pantheon of gods. He has, Joseph Smith being visited by an angel of light, Allah showing up to Muhammad, and all these different faiths out there, and what a perfect faith for the modern day, which would be, right now everybody's thinking science and transhumanism and the future, and suddenly we've got these beings showing up from other planets, perfectly timed with some great Hollywood movies, and
perfectly timed with evolutionism, which proposes that, hey, we evolved here, surely life evolved on other planets. And that's where all this all stems, has become a phenomena in time with evolutionism because of evolutionism. And you can see the tactics change, because in the Middle Ages, when evolutionism wasn't around yet, it wasn't aliens, it was pixies, elves, and fairies, and instead of taking people to a spaceship, they would take them to a cave and probe them with magic wands. And so you can actually see the tactic has actually changed in tune with the cultural phenomena of evolutionism, where now these are sophisticated beings in spaceships instead of elves and fairies and pixies.
Right, and I'm not even sure if I would buy that there's actually nuts and bolts spaceships flying around. I think it's nothing more than a trick of the eye.
Right.
But these manifestations where they come and visit you, I think these really are demonic manifestations. And you're right, they are subject to the name of Christ. I won't drop any names, but I know people who have called on the name of Christ in the middle of these meetings, if you will, and these things, they skedaddle, they get out, they boogie. And I wouldn't doubt it. Okay, I'm going to strap on my tinfoil hat here, but I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it if perhaps this might be the forerunner to the Great Deception. I don't know.
Right.
I don't want to get down that road of eschatology and end times, but I don't know. It's certainly another deception. One more to add to the pile.
For sure.
So, well, I think I've probably ran you into the dirt here. We've talked for quite a while. I've really enjoyed this, Ian. In fact, I might come back and try to con you into coming back again. It has been a pleasure. It's so fun to listen to you go on these subjects because you know so much about this debate. It's been a blast. Guys, by the way, that's ianjuby.org. Check out his website. There is so much to offer. It is a wealth of information. Check out his section on DVDs and books. He's got a lot of good information there as well. One of his DVD sets, I'm a little interested because rather than purchasing the 12 DVDs and paying for shipping, there's actually an option to download them. And you can get the entire 12 DVD set that Ian was talking about earlier for $50 by downloading it. Yeah, that's going to happen. I'm going to get that. You're going to get $50 from my pocket. So, but anyway, Ian, it has been a blast. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate that.